Good morning, Vietnam. All right, well, if you know what movie that's from, leave it in the comments and you'll get some brownie points. Okay, great movie. Good morning, Vietnam is the phrase. See what movie it's from. Might be a hint there. Okay, now, uh, Origins of Vietnam, Part 2. Okay, I don't have a trilogy to this like all great movies. But anyway, uh, we want to talk about the thing that gets U.S. troops into Vietnam. Okay, we're kind of looking for reasons, whether it's, I mean, even Kennedy was dealing with some stuff in terms of should we go into Vietnam or not during his presidency. Obviously, he's assassinated in 1963, and the guy on the screen here, we're under the same PowerPoint yet. Lyndon Johnson is going to be the guy that kind of deals with, there he is, Vietnam. So there is a bay or a gulf, kind of like we think of typically people that go to spring break to the Gulf of Mexico, right? There's a Gulf of Tonkin, a bay of water that the U.S. has naval presence in. We claim that one of those ships, the USS Maddox, are attacked by the North Vietnamese, and then that is our okay for self-defense, right, to go in to Vietnam. So we start U.S. bombing and then involving ground personnel, and that's under President Lyndon Baines Johnson. And there is a lot of debate whether that attack even took place or not, or it was just the thing to use to actually go in, right, with more troops. But that's what the Tonkin Gulf Resolution is, right? Claim we're attacked, self-defense. We got to go after these North Vietnamese sites that attacked us. Now, some really important things early on. Number one, American conscription, right? There will be a Vietnam War draft. Okay, and you can see on your screen 18 to 26-year-olds are where the range is. Now, here's the really significant thing. There are ways out of the draft, right? Obviously, if you have a physical or mental handicap, that's an exemption. This says draft dodging on the slide. You could, people would flee to Canada, right? Still a felony. You're supposed to report, but they would flee to Canada to avoid the draft. And then you'll notice the middle one here, right? It says student. If you were a college student, you were exempt from the draft. Now, I used to have a Vietnam vet come in and talk about this, and he had great stories, and he can tell them a lot better than me. But he was enrolled at Grand Rapids Community College, back then Grand Rapids Junior College. If your parents ever called JC, right, instead of CC, used to be called Junior College. He was in school at JC Community College. He hated it, unlike all of you who love school. He knew if he dropped out, though, he would very well likely end up in Vietnam. He disliked school so much, he dropped out, he got drafted. He ended up over in Vietnam on a Chinook helicopter, which he credited with probably one of the reasons he survived, being in the air as opposed to on the ground. But people in college don't have to go into the Vietnam draft. Okay, well, again, we're talking 1960s here. College is not as widely attended as it is in our day and age. So who are the people being exempt? Mostly affluent, rich, right? Largely white population. So I really am disappointed this year we don't get to watch Forrest Gump as a group after we go through all this awesome history second semester. But you'll notice when Forrest Gump, he actually volunteers, and he doesn't really understand what he's volunteering for Vietnam. He gets on the bus the first time. He meets his bestest friend, Bubba, right? If you watch that scene, a lot of the people sitting on the bus are African American, and that's intentional because minorities got drafted at a very high rate compared to their percentage of the population. They're not students in college, statistically speaking. Therefore, they're eligible. Okay, and so the Vietnam War has that aspect of it in terms of being the working class war, because it falls on the shoulders of non-college, non-academic type families. And so there's protests, there's demonstrations, riots, etc. Around this issue, right? People burning the draft card, as you can see in the picture, and there will be others. Okay, but you'll notice by the mid-60s, late 60s, 67, 68, we have over 500,000 American troops in Vietnam. Okay, and we'll start later to talk about this de-escalation as we get into the early 70s. But the draft is the reason for that graph looking the way it does.